Did you know there's a blockchain out there that can do over 4 million transactions per second? Sounds crazy, right? And actually 4 million is underselling it. Today, we're going to talk to Tom Anderson, one of the founders and CEO of a project that has blockchain that can do exactly that. This is a live interview, so we'll be taking audience questions as well. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money and crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Also, I am an investor in this company, Devio. After hearing about the transactions per second myself, I did a bunch of my own research and invested into the project. Though this is not a paid gig, I reached out to Tom and asked him to come on myself so I could get like an idea of what's going on, share it with all of you. I'm heavily interested in this project and some of the things that they're doing. We do want to give a shout out to our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Now make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And let's welcome Tom Anderson. Tom, thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, for those, now there's a lot of people in the crypto space that haven't heard of Devio yet. Could you give those that might be joining us but haven't heard of Devio, could you give us a kind of a quick overview?
Sure. I've had a lot of people tell us after they kind of do due diligence and dig in, the best project they've never heard of, right? So I think we've kind of been under the radar for a number of years, but we're just really, I think, starting to come out really kind of more mainstream. I think part of the reason that, people haven't really heard of us, in a broader context is that we've been focused really more on enterprise sales, enterprise business development, uses of the blockchain for professional businesses. Whereas now, over the past year, we've gotten out a play to earn video game. We've got a new upcoming version that's coming out, a big version 4 version that's coming out on April 22nd. And we're starting to really kind of expand and market now. So it's great timing to be on your show, and great seeing you and interacting.
Yeah. It's exciting what you've done with the game. I remember when I first saw it and you had sent it to me like an earlier alpha stage, and I was like, this is more developed than any game I see in the blockchain space. When are you releasing this? And you said, in a few months. I was blown away. The amount of complexity with the interactions, right? With crafting already working and a bunch of other things. It was really cool.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, one bit of background I think to kind of set the stage for people is maybe a little bit of history, real quick. What might be good. So, briefly, I'm an experienced entrepreneur myself. My first business, I raised about $34 million, took the company public, and it was a robotics business. And ultimately, we got into the video game industry. So a lot of my background was in the video game space. We published over 100 video game titles, licensed on the order of $100 million of video game development. So I'm an industry veteran in the video game space. And then about 7 years ago, started our blockchain company, Devio, and saw enormous opportunity in the space. To me, blockchain is one of the few technologies we'll see in our lifetime that really fundamentally changes computing, on par with the internet.
Totally.
But there was no technology. Yeah, totally. There was no technology that really solved all the problems you have to solve to build a real business. Big challenges in scalability, privacy, fraud, theft, and loss, stability. One of the biggest is cost. Another of the biggest is interoperability. So we built, for example, a RESTful API into our blockchain. So, given there was no solution to all those things, we designed our blockchain to solve those.
For those that don't know what RESTful API is, this is actually a really big deal. Like, you have Cardano building to interoperate with Haskell, which some programmers speak, Solidity, like some programmers speak. Talk about RESTful API. So you built your blockchain to integrate with RESTful API. What is that?
Yeah, so just traditional HTTP post commands. So there's 200,000 Solidity developers, for Ethereum. There's 25 million web developers, and any web developer can instantly integrate with our system. So one of the best, I guess, proof points on that is we recently brought in a traditional Web 2 team, and they actually built our wallet using our RESTful API. So it looks like kind of a PayPal, type of interface because it's traditional Web 2 stuff, but it's a Web 3 app. So they built our wallet, they built our Glassblock marketplace at glassblock.io. They built our sellers portal where people could sell stuff. We've actually even built an exchange. All of that with a Web 2 team building Web 3 applications that are kind of professional looking Web 2 applications, and scalable like Web 2 applications. So, being able to do that really to me is a game changer. I mean, it's really significant.
It's huge what you did, right? Because one of the big problems with Web3 is like, okay, we have this blockchain, we have this language that nobody yet speaks. So we need all the programmers to hurry up and learn this language so that they can program on our blockchain, right? Whereas you spent 4 years, because you've had your blockchain solution that could do all these transactions per second for a long time, but you took the time to make it integrate with RESTful API, or in other words, API calls, so that every web programmer out there could interact with it. And you're really seeing that in speed of development, right? Because basically you can hire any development team that knows web stuff and they can interact with your blockchain, almost not even realizing they're interacting with blockchain.
Yep, exactly. And any game developer, can integrate through a RESTful API as well. You could integrate with Unity or the Unreal Engine just with a few lines of code. So it's just broadly applicable. It's the standards that people build applications on these days outside of the the Web3 space.
So you developed that, and part of your testing in building the game, you're able to test your blockchain. And for those that haven't seen the game, let me share my screen. I've got the website pulled up. The game is the overall world is Litcraft. Right now you have Nisperience out, which is part of the bigger Litcraft world. What is your vision of where you would like to see this go, Litcraft?
Yeah. So Litcraft itself is a sci-fi fantasy universe. It's very deep and rich. We've got hundreds and hundreds of pages of kind of background on it. We put a book out. We're actually doing an animated series as well that's fun. And so it's got a lot of depth. Just I think of it kind of like Tolkien's worlds, or the Star Trek or Star Wars universe, for example. And the hope is that it could turn into one of those types of big brands, and we could eventually have movies and things like that. The game Litcraft Experience was the first game that was actually kind of one of the first applications we built on the blockchain, and we built it really as a test bed. So it's I think the longest running blockchain game. It's been running live on our blockchain for 4 years, and we had people that played hundreds of hours on it just because they thought it was fun, really, before we were really turning it into a product. So then, 15 months ago, 18 months ago, Axie Infinity exploded. The blockchain gaming space exploded. I'm going to give actually a little bit of a tip of the hat, to you, CryptoRain. You kind of helped guide us and said there's a big opportunity, and helped with some of the early designs. You were great. So we saw a great opportunity to take our existing game and our existing blockchain and really turn it into a blockchain gaming project, and have it be play to own and play to earn. And I think Litcraft Experience itself is a great game. It's got a lot of fun gameplay, but the whole vision really has kind of expanded beyond kind of that initial, kind of just single game. And what we're really building now is a digital financial ecosystem. And so anybody will be able to go into the game, focus on whatever it is that you want to focus on, whether you want to play like a Candy Crush type of game, or you want to dig and build in a Minecraft type of game, or you want to build a virtual business, or you want to battle in Heptones, right, which is our player versus player battling game, or you want to just interact in real world things like social media. You could do that through our kind of upcoming Lit Legion concept. I'll describe more on that. But whatever you want to specialize in, whatever you want to do, you can come in and do that, and then you can use items from other people doing whatever they're doing to kind of grow your specific expertise. So if you build a business, for example, just like in real world, you'll need accounting points, legal points, innovation points, right? And those will come from other people's efforts. And that specific products you sell, you might, like if you're a baker in the real world, you don't go and create a field and grow your own wheat. You go to you just order your wheat, right? That comes in, and then you bake using it. So same kind of thing. There will be people that, create foods, base items. There'll be people that turn them into more complex foods and sell them like in a restaurant. There'll be people that just buy the foods and use them to feed their lit pets for their business, that type of thing. And the overall ecosystem then becomes a situation where there's lots of flow between different assets. It's not just a situation where there's sinks and issuances and you try to balance those. That's not really a good. It's not a sustainable way to design a blockchain game, and that's how most blockchain games are thought of. It's really building an overall ecosystem with a lot of flow across many players, many activities, and many different assets, and that's really the power of what we're doing. And I'll also say, I think the big winners in the metaverse space, including Facebook and Meta itself, I think the big winners in the overall metaverse space are going to be the ones that do what we're doing, that are creating digital financial ecosystems.
Yeah. This is where it's going. I don't know. Did you ever read Elon Musk gave a talk, or maybe it was a paper that he wrote, and it was like back in 1998 when he talked about everything would be transacted on our phones. We would send money and it wouldn't be like fiat. It would be something else. And this is long before Bitcoin was ever invented, and almost like exactly where it's ended up going. This was in the early days of him founding PayPal. And you're right. You know what's interesting is, even though I've known you for going on 2 years now, and I feel like I understood where Devio was going, and the transactions per second were like amazing, and how that could bring things forward. It wasn't until like a few months ago when it really dawned on me something you said, that we're making it so simple for like everything Web 2 to go Web 3, right? So you have the transaction per second, you have the kind of calls that they're ready, and even gaming, right? That's what's exciting about to me, is that you have something fast enough that can handle the transactions per second right now.
Yeah,
and handle it to bring everything that we're used to into the blockchain world like that, right?
yeah, and cost effective is a big part of it too. 1/10 millionth the cost of Ethereum, or 1/3 billionth the energy usage of Bitcoin, right? So it's just a more efficient system and easy to integrate with. But I think we're also at a point where, over the past 5 or 6 years, we've been building this technological infrastructure of the blockchain. Over the past year and a half, now we're building the applications that are going to run on it, right? And again, we're able to build these so quickly into the level and polish that we can as quickly as we can, because of the original design and the RESTful API. But now we've built the glassblock.io interface, a marketplace. It's like a regular, like, sometimes you show people and they look at it and they're like, so what, right? Like, I've seen a bunch of these marketplaces, like Shopify sites, things like that. It's like, you don't understand. This is what you're used to looking at, but this is a Web3 application. And you buy an item, check out with a credit card, instantly get it, see it in your wallet within second, like less than a second, all the stuff people are used to with like a PayPal type of interface, but it's all on a decentralized, with our sharding solution, where there's validators, maintaining copies of the blockchain. Everything's on an immutable, auditable blockchain. It's a Web3 app that looks like a Web2 app. So now that we're building those applications, and then you have a traditional looking game and traditional types of gameplay. And on the upcoming Earth Day, April 22nd launch, we're going to put out like a dozen new games. So you have things like Solitaire and Sudoku. We're going to have our PvP working, just lots of new types of gameplay. So all those integrate with the RESTful API as well. So exciting, kind of where we're headed there.
So the PvP within Litcraft, right? So people will be able. I would jump into there. Some of my own community members would crush me.
I our community members would crush me, a lot of them at this point too. I need to. They've been playing a lot, and I've been building the business. I need to get back up to speed. But so actually, we're going to have the PvP out this week. I'm trying to test a version that should be kind of the final version that goes out. And so the PvP is going to come out sooner than that, April 22nd. Lit Legion, our community site's going to come out, before April 22nd. But then the new overall kind of underpinnings of the digital financial ecosystem, that's what's the version 4 version of Mistbrain's coming out.
That's exciting. You had talked to me a little bit about Lit Legion. I saw it here on the site, and then you'll be releasing more information on that soon.
Yeah. So Lit Legion, to me, is one of the most exciting things kind of coming up in 2023, and we're close to being able to release kind of a beta version of it. So what it is, you can think of it as, I think of it as maybe the world's first real world MMO, right? So when you take a massively multiplayer online game like World of Warcraft, you
Hmm.
go to an NPC and then he gives you a task, and then you run and you kill a bunch of orcs or something, and then you come back and you say, here's the orc shields that I collected, right? And then they're like, great, here's a reward. Here's the next task, right? So what we've designed Lit Legion is like a similar type of concept where you have many different types of branches and trees that you can complete tasks. They have NPCs similarly that are just characters that you interact with, but then you go and you do real world tasks. So one task might be retweet this tweet. Another task might be put a guide out in our wiki. Another one might be just play a game a certain amount with some friends, and create some community there. One of the big categories of Lit Legion is, bringing other people into the group, right? And that's where some of the biggest rewards will be. And the overall idea is that for every Lit Legion member, we get two more, right? And then you can have that geometric growth that the world's big companies have really grown. So I see it as a key to our growth, but I also see it as just a place we're going to have fun, have a community, interact, do fun concepts, and then every single task you do leads to rewards, leads to experience where you level up and can kind of show your prestige. We have an avatar system that's really compelling. That's going to have, and we've got it's quadrillions of different variations on different characters, and then every one of the characters has thousands of different clothing that they can have. So we've got this big avatar system coming up and everything. So Legion overall is going to be just a really fun place for community that's tied into this overall digital financial ecosystem.
That sounds really fun. Like what's cool about your game is the traction that it has. Like we were talking a couple months ago, and you told me how many people are playing the game. I forget what you told me the daily or the monthly active users, and I was like, what? In this crypto bear market, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's in the scheme of things, it's kind of a small game, especially when you think about kind of the traditional video game industry where we've gone. But the thing that I really like about kind of our early trajectory is the stickiness and the level of players that we've had. For the type of community we have, it's incredibly active. Like you can go to our Litcraft group in Telegram, ask a question, you'll get a bunch of people instantly answer in a really friendly way. Everybody's respectful. Like it's just a nice, fun group to interact with, and I think that's the beginnings of the community we're going to build longer term. And we have players that have already spent many hundreds of hours playing, and so for the first time now, actually starting in January of this year, we're really now starting to expand our marketing. I'm starting to go out and do a bunch more AMAs. We're doing a Brave browser campaign. We hired a company that's doing viral videos for us and doing a bunch of A/B testing on a bunch of different types of videos. So a lot of our marketing is ramping up now. So we're poised for growth. And another thing we can do with the Legion is also then bring in external communities through partnerships. We want to work with gaming guilds, which drove a lot of Axie's growth. All of those types of things. So overall, we're really, I think, starting our growth phase now.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like you've been under the radar because you haven't really put money into marketing, and people haven't known. You've just been developing, which I'm always a function over form person, right? So like I want to see something substantive. And that's what I've always liked about, like, when my friend called me and told me about Devio, I was like, no way they can do millions of transactions per second. And this was 2 years ago, and I've never heard of them. And they've been developing for like 5 years. No way. But sure, I want to talk to your friend because obviously it's got my curiosity. And then as I was talking to him, and then he connected me up to you, and I was, man, these guys have so much substance. I'm excited because when marketing goes out, which is just kind of the attractiveness that gets people to look at it, and then they see the substance behind it. There's so much substance, right? And I like that you're set up to bring, because one of the projects and I still like it, that I've been excited about is Cardano. And Cardano in the future will be able to scale up to 1 million transactions per second, or maybe even more in the future. And that might be 3 or 4 years away. And which is cool. Devio can already handle those kind of transaction speeds already, right? With a user language that most people speak, which is really cool. So the substance is there.
Yeah.
We have
Most
some.
crypto. I was going to say most crypto projects are, the sizzle and not the steak. We've always, been the steak, and now we're trying to show the sizzle. So.
I want to acknowledge some comments in here. This is live. So Bill says first, let's go. Benassi X says, Tom, woohoo. Risig
I know
Mini
Benassi is in our
Mining.
community. That's great.
Hi, Tom. Stumbled into the AMA by accident. Always love your passion and openness in these chats. Casey Away says, good day, Tom. Wondering where I can purchase some Devio. Well, shoot, you can't get Devio yet. The token will be live some point down the road. It isn't tradable to U.S. citizens, or won't be.
Yeah. One of the challenges, being a U.S. company is you have to be careful what you describe kind of in public forums, with respect to tokens. So, so the Devi token is the E in Devi. So the Devi token is our platform token on the DevX platform. The E in Devi stands for ESG. So it has a lot of environmental aspects, which is another big part of our business. We recently spun out a company called DevStream, and it went public on the Neo Stock Exchange in Canada. That's just a couple of weeks ago went public. So we have a lot of efforts in ESG and environmental types of things as well, and I think there's a lot of room for us to grow well there. We have our Litcraft token. We'd previously called it Quint, but we're going to change the name to something else because there was already a Quint out there. But so the Quint token, probably going to call it Taupe. We'll probably use for things like staking, to increase guilds efficiencies, and guilds are ways to get groups of people together and make more heptal revenue in the game, things like that. So those types of utilities I think are exciting about kind of where we're going. But again, being a US company, we can't really talk about public sales and sales of the tokens and things like that. So.
Yeah. So great question, Casey, and thank you for asking, Tom. Great explanation. Where do you see, so Litcraft, you've been working on this lore for 15 years now? What's the timeline?
Probably about a decade, right? Something like that.
Because you also wrote a book, and so there's a book out on it years back. 5 years back?
Yeah. So a friend of mine and I wrote a book called Grant Vegan, and it's the first book in a 7-part series. And then it was where we started really kind of ironing out a lot of the lore, but then it's really kind of expanded. Now the lore permeates, everything in the Litcraft universe, in the games, and then again a show that we're creating. And so the lore itself has really been a fun project. It's been a fun passion project, for me. It predates Devio, like you say. And the hope is that it could become one of the big IPs in the world, like I said, earlier in the conversation. I think one of the things that's compelling about the lore then also is it creates a level of consistency in the game and in the ecosystem, and just gives it some depth and reality that you wouldn't otherwise have. And then I also think the depth and reality of the ecosystem and the various types of tokens and how those tie into the lore also further strengthens the lore. And then all of the different characters in the game, all the different species. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of species of characters. Those will go into the lore as well. They're the characters that are going into future books and the show, and hopefully future movies and things like that. So so the lore is definitely a really fun part of the overall just experience and ecosystem as well.
So for those that don't know a little bit about the background, but we've all seen Harry Potter and stuff, could you give the audience a little bit of an idea of this Litcraft world and what it's all about?
Sure. Yeah, the main idea is that there's a lot of mages living right under our nose. So there's a lot of stories and storytelling around similar concepts to like that. Harry Potter is one of them. There's lots of others. But again, the kind of depth of the society, the magic system is really very deep. So there's mages that again are kind of living under our noses. Over millennia, the magical creatures and the magical world, the lit world, the world of the lit, kind of consolidated into towns and cities that are separate from the unlit world is what it's called. It's called lit because as generations of mages, kind of grow and expand, they light each other's powers. So when you're born, you have access to magical abilities, but your powers aren't lit. And there's mages called flames that go around and try to find even unlit people that have magical potential, and then they can light their abilities, and then they can be introduced to this world. You could take a trip through mirror portals into, for example, Scent, which is a big city at the center of the world, and it's spinning, because if you're at the center of the world, there's no gravity, right? Because you have the mass pulling in all directions, so it's spinning, which creates gravity. So we've put a lot of thought into kind of the physics of the system. The magic system itself is very complex, and just has had a lot of thought into it. And it also, the magic system represents a lot of my own personal beliefs, again, over decades of thinking about kind of the true nature of reality. And it has a lot of metaphysical concepts built into it. So the lore, again, is just a fun part of the whole thing, and creates consistency across everything.
Yeah. Back when, so let's rewind time to when you were first working on your algorithm and your sharding algorithm, because that's kind of what kicked this all off, right? Years back. Now, prior to, you have a background in video game development, but you also have a background in a special place in New Mexico that does really top-end research for the federal government, right? I don't know if you wanted to share that, so I didn't throw out any names there, but how did you find this sharding algorithm that could give us a solution that could do so many transactions per second?
I've always been, I like to think at least, that I've been good with algorithms. And another thing that I think is one of my kind of personal skills is I'm good at analyzing big complex systems and kind of boiling things down into a way that you can interact with them algorithmically. And so when I first started looking at the blockchain space, we had a particular blockchain application we had in mind. But then, given my business background, just a traditional entrepreneur, right? And I'm an experienced entrepreneur. You start looking at these blockchain kind of concepts, and it's like, if you're going to spend your career and a big chunk of your life, building applications, like there's certain business concepts that you have to meet, right? Things have to be scalable. Like, the worst thing you could do is build an application, like when CryptoKitties kind of crippled Ethereum. Like, you don't want to build applications that when they start turning into real applications and real businesses, that they can't scale, right? Cost ultimately is a big part of it. I spent a lot of time looking at things like fraud, theft, and loss, and stability, concepts that still to this day aren't as significant in the crypto space as they will be in the future. And so 6 or 7 years ago, we were building designs like fraud, theft, and loss. That's a big category, and privacy, is a big category. Those are things that we designed in, early on. And so given that there was no solution to all of those challenges, that's where we, designed, the kind of core algorithms of the blockchain. So I came up with kind of the initial core algorithms, and then I started working with Nick Williams and Sean McKinney and Bill Anderson, and just brilliant guys, and actually implemented the first implementation. And then those guys really kind of pushed the RESTful API, which I think is a key part of our future growth. So the way the whole thing has kind of grown and expanded started with those algorithms. And then we added a lot of really impressive business team members as well. So we worked for a number of years and still as an advisor with General Vincent Stewart, former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. There's 2 venture capitalists on our team. Ray Quintan is my partner from the beginning, growing the business. He was one of 2 general partners at the best performing early stage venture capital company in the country, Coin Prequin. We have Will Stewart on our team, who's just a cream of the crop VC, has invested over $5 billion into over 400 tech companies. Another really just brilliant guy in terms of business. We've got Sonny Trin on our team, who left Avnet, a Fortune 200 electronics manufacturer and distributor, joined us, really got involved in our ESG business. And then he's the CEO that we spun out of DevStream that we just took public, and got a great relationship ongoing with Sonny. So DevStream is one of our kind of key partners. So it's just a world-class team across the board And the team actually is the thing I'm most proud of everything we've done at Devio. So that's a little bit more detail on kind of our growth and where we started and kind of the people we're headed there with now.
Yeah, I traveled down to your conference a few months back, and I met the person that designed your marketplace. Oh my gosh. He is incredible. So he gave some talks and was talking about the glass block marketplace that developed. Could you share his background as well? Because I was just blown away, not only by his background, but he is so bright.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're referring to Jason Markowski. So Jason was the person that developed the Kindle project at Amazon, including the Kindle marketplace, right? So being able to build kind of a global scale marketplace is great expertise. So we brought Jason in to design our marketplace. And he really did an amazing job on it. Got us set up in the right direction. And again, he didn't have Web3 experience coming in, so he was a Web 2 guy himself. He had Web 2 programmers, and we brought on a Web 2 team, just traditional, web programmers. And then they used our RESTful API and built all of our, kind of platform Web 3 applications, our web app, and then the NFT marketplace and this NFT sellers marketplace. So Jason actually recently left, but he came on, designed it, got the system. We got to a point where we had those finished, the marketplace and the sellers portal and the DevX web app. And we're not really innovating there anymore. Really, more of our innovation now is going to be kind of on the gaming side, the digital financial ecosystem, and the in the overall kind of games that we're continuing to grow. So Jason's kind of moved on,
Went
but
back into
was a good part of
retirement,
where
right? Because
we're
he's
growing.
retired like 3 separate times, but he came out of
Yeah.
retirement to work with
He
you
generally
guys.
doesn't stay at companies too long. So came in, did his thing, did a great job for us getting stuff going, and we're well positioned really to have a very solid foundation on all of our web applications now. So.
Yeah, I think he told me he had retired like 3 separate times, but he was so excited with what you guys had. He wanted to work with you guys and build it. So it's not surprising to me that he's back in retirement again.
Yeah.
Cool guy. What's fun about where this is going is I feel like all the foundations are set up, and I was an early investor in Axie Infinity, right? And I remember kind of like thinking, is this going to come together? Is this going to happen? It's got some of the right blocks, and they're early on these ideas. So I think so, but we'll see. And with Devio, I feel like your foundation is super solid, and it's really exciting to me. And what's super exciting to me is the world's going to wake up to blockchain, right? And I remember the days back, I had a sister that was working in web design back when everybody was scrambling to have a website. Do you remember those days? The brick and mortar businesses were like, oh no, it's like, you need a website. You don't have a website. And so like, she was making like crazy money, $100 an hour as like a 19-year-old doing web design because everybody needed it. And I can see the day when everyone's like, I need to get Web3 interactivity enabled and stuff. And they'll be looking around for solutions. And something that can integrate with the languages all their programmers already speak just seems like an easy proposition to me.
I think the blockchain space also is kind of following that same trajectory. I generally think of the blockchain space kind of where the web space in the mid 90s, and people, think of Ethereum as the 800-pound gorilla. But, in the scheme of things are very early. InfoSeek was the 800-pound gorilla, or Ask Jeeves or Yahoo. Yahoo's still around, but not to the level that they were kind of back then. So I think the big winners in the space are yet to emerge. And I think especially in the Metaverse space, which is even earlier, the big winners are yet to emerge. And again, the big winners, I think, are going to be the ones that really build these, financial ecosystems. So.
Yeah. Speaking of the metaverse, I have some thoughts on that. I think some projects are going the total wrong direction on this. Like, for example, and I invested in, what was the first one? Decentraland. So like I invested some things because they were first to that space. And then I bought some land in Sandbox. But as they were coming out and I ran around Decentraland, I was like, I don't think a lot of people are going to like sit down at their computers so that they can spend time walking in a virtual space, right? As you're walking around, you're like, this walking thing is boring as can be. I think the metaverse is going to come out somewhat differently, that it's going to just really integrate social interactivity with video gaming and video game items, maybe something along the lines of what you're doing with Lit Legion, where it's integrating real life with video game items, right? Where there's not like a ton of walking around the metaverse. And so maybe I'm wrong on that. And maybe Decentraland is going to be
exactly
the biggest thing, and Sandbox is going to be. But as I was walking around, they had some games in there. I was like, who's going to want to do any walking around? Like, you're not going to go want to sit at a computer, put on a VR headset, be on like a couple times to walk around and look around. It's all about interactivity and like connecting with the things people already like and getting them to it faster, not making them walk across many blocks in the metaverse in order to get to the stadium or whatever.
Right. Meta itself, as big as they are and as much money they put in, they're running into that same problem. And honestly, a lot of the mistakes that are being made are the same mistakes I saw in the early 2000s, because my career was in the video game industry and in 3D virtual worlds and virtual reality. I've spent my whole career, kind of around virtual reality. And I knew the founder of Second Life. I was talking to him back in the early 2000s, kind of saw how that grow. And so same thing, like you build these, I remember big brands building these big, amazing, beautiful, even for graphics back then, I mean, admittedly beautiful, kind of campuses. But then they ended up being ghost towns, after a week, I think when you look at kind of, again, where things are going, I think financial ecosystems are going to drive the big winners. I also think ecosystems that have, a lot of the stuff that people want to do online, it's not a mystery, right? That like you have real success stories like Roblox and Minecraft. You see what people do on console gaming, all of the big interactions in first-person shooters. I've played a bunch of a game called Valorant recently, just kind of exploring, learning it, things like that. So I mean, it's known what people like to do online. I think there will be things over time that expand when you have augmented reality and virtual reality. But there's so many things that just are kind of known concepts. So that's a big part of what we did is we said, like, these are things we know people like solitaire, right? Like, people have played a lot of solitaire over the years, right? Like gazillions of hours. So, why not have a solitaire type of interaction that ties into this, digital financial ecosystem? Sudoku is another one, right? So we have a Sudoku game. Actually, one thing that's kind of cool about how we're doing it is some of the concepts are analogous in the businesses. So, right. So if you play Sudoku, if you've played, you have to line up all the numbers and everything has to add up perfectly. That's really similar to accounting, right? If you're an accountant, and so when you play Sudoku in the Litcraft experience game, you get accounting points, and then you have to use those accounting points in a virtual business, and as you level up your business, just like in real life, when you first start, maybe you could do your own accounting on, QuickBooks or whatever, but you start getting a business that's bigger, you start bringing in employees, you got to hire an accountant. You don't want to do everything yourself. So you got to use accounting points. So again, then this overall kind of flow concept, if you want accounting points on your business, as your business gets bigger and bigger businesses need accounting, then you got to get those accounting points, which means you're buying assets from somebody else based on their gameplay. And then bigger businesses also need, marketing, for example. Well, where do you get marketing points? You get marketing points in Lit Legion, and you get marketing points in Lit Legion by actually spreading the word about the whole, ecosystem. So, for example, you can retweet a tweet, get a couple of marketing points, sell those marketing points on Glassblock. Somebody else building a business that needs those digital marketing points buys them from you on Glassblock, and you can sell them for cash or heptals, right? So the complexity of it starts to become really compelling, and it starts to turn into what the real world is, right? The real world has an ecosystem where everybody interacts with everybody else. Like I work for a company, I get money, I go buy money at a restaurant. People work for the restaurant, get paid by the restaurant. They buy devices. People that work at the device companies get paid, and right. So it's all this kind of flow, right? So we built our system and designed our system around that concept. Built all the infrastructure and underpinnings on it, and then brought in a bunch of fun games that are tried and true, known quantities that people are going to have fun playing. So I think it's all a recipe for what really I think is going to be successful in Metaverse and play to own, play to earn games.
that innovation is so cool. I didn't even know that. So
Yeah, it's cool concepts, isn't it? Yeah.
right, because some people are going to be like, I don't even have a Twitter account, I can't share it out, and they won't need to. They can just buy the marketing points, and you will probably have some people. It's like, man, I'm going to do this all day long, and they'll sit there and earn a whole bunch of marketing points that they can.
I'm only going to do Twitter because that's what you like, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I just want to play a game like Candy Crush Saga. I just want to play a match 3 game. So you come in and you just play that. Another thing that's really cool. This is one of the most important concepts of it. So if you build, so Axie, you mentioned Axie Infinity. So Axie Infinity really did a lot of things right, and really kind of set the stage for what I think blockchain. They were a foundational kind of player in the space. But there's a few things I think they didn't, that we thought could be improved, right? So the big upfront costs, we got rid of that. Anybody can jump in and play right away. Another thing I think could be improved is this concept of sinks versus issuances, right? And so you don't want to, that works when things are growing, but you don't want to build a complex ecosystem that's really kind of a simple sinks versus issuances. It's too hard to kind of balance it. So you do need something that becomes an ecosystem. Another thing that they did well, and I took to heart, is you don't want to undercut the players. You want the value to go to the players who are playing. And to me, this represents a fundamental new category in the gaming industry, right? So a little bit of history, looking at it kind of perspective, you've got games like Myst in the mid 90s, where you got CD-ROMs for the first time you start playing. You got MMOs in kind of early 2000s. You've got free-to-play games when the app stores came out, kind of later 2000s. You've got a lot of games now that are free-to-play and you sell skins, right? So there's these particular business models that have grown as big categories in the video game industry. And I think blockchain gaming and play to earn, and really, I think more important, play to own, is going to be one of these big categories. And if you build a play to earn and a play to own game, fundamentally what you're doing is you're saying the players are the ones who are getting the value in the system. So this is another really compelling part of what we're doing. So in Candy Crush Saga, they designed the game where you can get in, it's easy to play, you get hooked on it, you start playing, it gets more and more complicated, more and more difficult, I'll say. And then you get to a point where to really continue, you have to buy power-ups. So they designed the game well, and it's been very successful financially. But the publisher sells the power-ups. In our model, you have to do it differently. So you can have games that have power-ups or skins that you sell, or NFTs that have value, or even advertising, which is a big revenue model in a lot of games. All of those things are things that players create. So players will craft advertising tokens that are sold to advertisers. Players will craft the power-ups that other new players coming in will want to play and use. And so that, to me, I mean, that's just a killer application and killer concept. I mean, that's, again, these are fundamental things that make me feel like we can win, in a lot of these concepts,
What some people don't realize, especially during the crypto winter, is what success looks like, right? So I remember watching an AMA from Axie Infinity in their early days. I was actually thoroughly unimpressed. It was 4 people in a room. They all looked like they were about 19 years old. And the answers to their questions were actually like not very good. And I thought, oh my gosh, have I lost the 4,100 I invested in this? Did it go down a rabbit hole? Later, like as money came in, their ideas were transformational, even though it's somewhat one-dimensional, right? I think Axie Infinity really showed that it works, but it wasn't strong enough to, like, I don't know that they have a future, right? Because it was too one-dimensional. But seeing their ideas, I was like, but these ideas should change the world, and sure enough, they did. And so what I love about this conversation is some of these things I'm hearing are new to me. I wasn't even aware of. And these ideas are transformational, and it's going to be fun to see them catch on, right?
Yep.
Because you're right. What if they could get those power-ups? They could earn them by doing other things, and they could be the one selling the power-ups rather than the game selling them. One of the things Axie Infinity did completely right, which was amazing, is they did their best to make it free to play so that people could play. The one downside was if you didn't have a team, you had to buy a team in order to play. And then as a company, every company has to make money. They just made some money on the transactions as people sold stuff. And that's how they made money. And they did such a good job bringing people to the ecosystem, or a reason people wanted to play, that is everybody money changed hands all over the place. They made a lot of money as a company on that. In fact, they made a fortune on that, on just a small transaction fee, without charging people to get started. They let the value go to the people who are playing, who was then breeding or earning the smooth love potion and stuff. And they just kind of got out of the way as a company and made a mint in the meantime, which I love, which is the same kind of idea you were describing here, is allow the value to accrue to the players, get out of the way. And, and then, as a company, you probably make money on the transaction fees as everybody's making lots of value and money.
Right. Yeah. So you build this massive ecosystem, lots of flow between lots of different players. Ultimately, you're selling items that a percentage of the community is going to want to spend fiat on, for example. And then you're right. Devio's business model is to then take a percentage of the fees of what's sold in Glassblock, and we use the same percentage as what Axie was using. Kind of using them as a template.
Yeah.
Another of the concepts that you'll appreciate this as well. I think you'll like this concept. Is the reason I call it a digital financial ecosystem, and I'm not calling it a gaming ecosystem or whatever, is because it's a broader concept. So again, when you take the step back and you say it's not just sinks and issuances, and then it starts to turn into flow within the game, and then you have lots of different activities, lots of different specializations, lots of different people with lots of different assets, all trading and flowing, and things you'll need in your business. You just go on the Glassblock and buy heptals. There's some items on Glassblock that will only be available for fiat, right? Those types of things. So then you have kind of that overall ecosystem concept, and then you take it even one step further, which is where our head is at, and you say, let's start integrating real world activities, into things. So for example, this concept of doing real world marketing that creates digital marketing points that go into a digital business is really compelling. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things you can do with that, right? So one of the things that we're looking to do is we're trying to get plastics tokens onto the platform that are real ESG, environmental social governance plastics tokens, where there's this great company called Ocean's Integrity that removes plastics out of the ocean. And then you have proof that they move plastics out of the ocean, and then that turns into plastics tokens. And we want to put those into the ecosystem where you get those and you can craft things into games with them, and know that while you're playing, that you're actually doing real world good. You're actually literally removing plastics out of the ocean with funds that are kind of being created in the game that ultimately go to, in the future, buying even more, plastics tokens, or all of the Legion stuff where you have real world tokens that are based on, helping another user out, or contributing to the wiki or whatever. And then it can continue to expand from there. You could have ultimately real world assets that are represented with a NFT implementation. You could have real world communities, like people in a movie theater. You go to a movie theater and maybe do an augmented reality scan, and get an item that then goes for me at a physical location. So the what we're talking about isn't just a game, and it isn't even just a metaverse, financial ecosystem. It's as it's all really kind of sunk in over the last few months. It's like, wow, what we're doing really is, the digital financial ecosystem for the world. And tying back to what you originally kind of said, Elon Musk's original vision was at PayPal, and what PayPal was originally looking to do. This is the technology and implementations I think you need to have to bring that big long-term vision, to fruition.
I love the integration, and I know that you were working with that company that, I'm a big fan of a clean environment, right? Like, I remember going to Disneyland as a kid and coming down into the valley. My parents, I swear we drove for days to get there. We get to LA, I'm so excited, and we go down, there's smog everywhere. It's no longer as bad there, right? Also, the plastics in the ocean and washing up on the beach is a big deal, is killing massive amounts of birds who eat the lids on the bottles. They think it's like food, and then they end up starving to death because they're full of these plastics they can't digest. And so how do you solve these real world problems? And one of them is how do you solve it? And part of what Devio's done is some alignment of so that there's money to those who then solve these problems in a verifiable way. So did I hear right that you're integrating that also with the game? That these plastics tokens, so which creates a real world good, they then need for items in the game.
And you could tie it into a game as well, where you could have like a game where you remove plastics from the ocean, or you could have just a game that's like a different type of solitaire or whatever. Like so you could design it however you want, but so you could implement it through analogy or kind of through kind of a direct interface or through something that's just related. But the idea is, so here's one thing that we would want to do. For example, like you take a let's say I buy $10,000 worth of plastics tokens to start. And then we sell $10,000 worth of tokens that have some utility in the game. Or actually, let's say we sell $20,000 of tokens that have utility in the game. Well, you could take those items, use them in a business, sell them, create more Heptal revenue, use Heptals to create things that have fiat off ramps, right? So by buying those on Glassblock, the plastics components, I'll call them, by buying those, you're ending up with something that helps you monetize in the game. So then we take that $20,000, buy another $20,000 of plastics tokens, and then sell those for $40,000, right? And you can kind of continue growing and expanding. So I think some of the concepts of giving retail and kind of average users access to something that they're actually making a real difference in the world that's auditable and transparent, I think is a really compelling concept. There's one other thing that's important when you start talking about ESG and environmental applications, and this is the core of our ESG side of our business, our environmental side of our business, is I would argue the biggest challenge in the entire ESG space. And a lot of people don't realize how big ESG is. A lot of people haven't even heard the term ESG, but it's I would argue the biggest business category in the world right now. It's bigger than AI and machine learning and robotics and things like that. There's tens of trillions of dollars being put into ESG applications. It's a massive business, kind of surprisingly big for how little people kind of really know about it. But the biggest challenge, as big as the ESG space is, in the ESG space, is trust and provenance of data and transparency and things like greenwashing. So that's where our technology comes in. And I think there's a lot of things that we're doing that are fun in a gaming sense. I think that can grow into a very powerful financial ecosystem that will give us a lot of ability to do a lot of good in the world. Part of the vision of Devio is to give everybody in the world the resources they need to fulfill their potential. Let everybody capture, the value that they create without losing it all to middlemen, things like that. So I think we could build this massive financial ecosystem. But another big category, the two big categories of what I see us doing, is building this digital financial ecosystem and then building the world's source of truth for ESG data. And that's needed to solve the world's problems. And if we're going to survive as a species, like, we're going to have to, solve those problems. And trust and transparency is a big part of it.
Yeah, I love the transparent approach because there is a lot of fraud in that sector, right? So sometimes when I hear it, I see the amount of fraud and it's like, well, everyone wants to know that their money going for good actually goes for good, because so many times it gets misdirected, which I like the transparency blockchain enables, which is a big part of the direction of what you're going that way. And I think that's why you called your marketplace Glassblock, is because glass is transparent, right? So it's the transparency behind it.
Yeah, and blocks for the blockchain, right?
Makes sense. I wanted to get to some more of the comments. Gestures Rune says, love the creative world and lore. Felix Virlo says, Jay, hope Tom will be a regular guest here in channel. Can't wait Devio start awakening. This is really exciting. I'm actually hearing some of this stuff for the first time myself. And I'm excited about the interaction, the real life interaction, and being able to monetize it, right? One of the cool things that Axie Infinity did right was they made it so, like, people in the Philippines, they made a game enough in the economics that people could capture the value. So you had people in lower economic statuses that could make more playing the video game because of the value creation in it than they could in their day job, which is really fun. I love the idea that, people can capture the value of the work that they put in a game that's fun enough that people want to join and play. Rizit Mining says, I was surprised at the depth within the Nesperience game. There's so much to do and learn already in this more basic stage that the game is at. Can't wait for the V2 release. Great comment. Mark asked a question. I don't know that what we can answer here, Mark. There isn't a token out that you can buy, or I don't know that there is any way that you can invest right now. And
yeah, nothing we could say on that right now. So yeah.
Right. Simba asks, will Devio be an ERC20 token first?
No, the tokens that we'll implement will be on our blockchain. So we'll do. I'll say we're looking to do integrations, and we're in the process of doing integrations with exchanges, and they'll use our blockchain and our shards to track the token. So they won't be our ERC20. To that past question, also, how can you buy Devio? So we don't have Devio stock for sale. We don't have the Devi tokens or the Quint tokens for sale. So those are the kinds of things, again, we can't talk about. But I can say you can the idea of the Litcraft experience game is you can earn, right? And you can get in and start earning, and over time you can invest what you earn in heptals, like in the in-game currency, into businesses that earn more and more over time. And just like regular businesses, you have a period of time where they're not profitable, and you got to grow and cross that profitability threshold, right? So there's those kind of, so getting in early into the ecosystem and getting heptals and using that to kind of further grow and carve your niche, I think is going to be value to people. And then if you have a business later on that you've grown over time and it's profitable and you're making more money, then you're bringing in more heptals that can go towards crafting lit pets that you sell on the Glasslock marketplace, or crafting power-ups that you sell to new players coming into a new game release. Or if we integrate a first-person shooter player, you could craft skins, that those players, that if that's all they're interested in, just playing the FPS game, and a lot of games monetize very well that way. There's going to be players that will play our games and just want to buy the items for that. So if you've gotten into the ecosystem early and kind of built yourself up, you can get to a point where then you are building the items that have those fiat off-ramps.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Tom, we talked about giving away a land piece for one of the viewers. Are you still down for that?
Yeah, let's do it. I love your channel, Crypto Rain. I love everything you've been doing. So giving, and your community's been great, by the way. Like, some of your communities come over and played with us and gotten involved in our. So doing a good giveaway with you guys is good. We should do it now and do more of it in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Some of my community members, have been like, I see them when I jump into the Litcraft Telegram, and I see them in there all the time, and they're the ones I turn to, right? I bought a bunch of the lit pets, the Genesis lit pets, and I didn't know how to tell if mine were good. So I went to some of my community members, and they're like, yeah, this one's strength is that, and that's going to be good for battling, and this can be good for that.
They're great.
Like, thank you so much. Yeah, because they had really got into the battling and everything. And so they were awesome. They knew everything about Litcraft and the pets and what their strengths and weaknesses were. So, for somebody to win, then why don't you ask a question? Let's ask a question. The first person that gets an answer in the comments, who gets the right answer, we'll do the giveaway to. So, Tom, do you have a question in mind that might be something we've even talked about today?
Yeah. So when are we going to do our version 4 Litcraft experience release? What date? Anybody remember?
All right. So the first person, now keep in mind, when you put your answer in YouTube, sometimes your answer will show up in your stream immediately, but we can't go off the one that shows up in your stream. We have to go off the one that shows up in ours first, which should be the first person who puts it in, because, it takes whatever time it takes to then propagate to my stream so that I can see the answer. So,
if no one remembers from what we said, I have a hint too, but we'll see if somebody gets it. So.
Solve Maxwell.
Are people entering it right now? How do you have the comments set up?
So they will have to give us probably their Telegram name. And so then we can reach out to them in Telegram and get their, if they haven't created a Litcraft login, they'll have to create that. And then Tom can end up saying it to you once he knows your Litcraft
we'll get instructions.
login.
So Telegram's a good way to handle it. That sounds good.
Yeah.
I more meant, are people answering the question right now? Because this is live.
This is all live.
Do you see an answer?
No, not yet. I see no. So either they're trying to look it up because they don't remember it, or it hasn't come through yet. Vinny Man says, folks will type that into Chat GPT for answers, which,
Yeah,
oh my
right.
gosh, I was blown away with
I'd be
what
impressed if
Chat GPT could do.
knew that. Yeah. That's crazy what Chat GPT has been doing recently too. All the stories about it. Pretty
Oh my
amazing
gosh.
technology as well. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I'll give a hint in a minute if nobody's gotten it. Then it'll be from the hint, just a quick Google search and a race to enter it. All right, so that's probably good. That's probably a
think we need
good
the
time
hint,
if anybody knew it. Yeah. So the hint is Earth Day this year.
All right. I'm sure even Chat GPT knows Earth Day this year.
Yeah. So let me know who the winner is. Introduce me on Telegram, and we'll get them over an experienced land chest.
Will do. Tom, I know you got a busy day. I appreciate you so much for joining us. And do you got a few more minutes, or do you got to roll right now?
I have a couple minutes. I probably got to go in just a moment, but yeah.
Perfect. Chat GPT, Tim, a mutual friend of ours, was telling me that his son is like working in this business and doing some marketing. And Tim showed his son Chat GPT, and his son was then playing around with it. And his boss was like, wait, he showed him what the articles it could write for him. He's like, oh my gosh, I hired this gal to do marketing, and she takes 2 weeks to generate a story for me. And the story that you just did in 2 seconds with ChatGPT is like way better than what she writes. He's like, oh my gosh, you're going to save me so much money and time, right? Because the guy was taking 2 weeks.
Is this Tim I know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I saw an article recently where ChatGPT was asked to create interview questions for somebody getting a job, and then it asked for the answers to the questions, and it was a very polished set of questions, looked very professional, and then a very polished set of answers. So just like going back and forth between itself is it's like a little bit of a freaky type of thing to read, where this thing is just talking to itself. It's like you're watching it from the side and going like, wow, this looks real, like it's pretty.
That's so crazy. Felix Virlo is our winner, April 22nd.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding.
Felix, I need your Telegram, and then I'll get your Telegram to Tom. So do you have a Telegram? You can put it in here. It does make it somewhat difficult in the chat to get your information. So if you have a Telegram, or you can reach out to my Telegram. I just put my Telegram in there. Felix, reach out to me there, or if you can type it in here, I'll shoot you a quick message, and then I can get that information over to Tom, and he can get you your lit land chest.
Yeah,
these are tier 7 land, which
and then you take it into the game and you open the chest and see what kind of land you get, and then you can use those lands in your businesses, and then in the future we'll have where you can actually choose kind of specific land locations. So
all right, just a sec.
Here, I see it at Miniliguar. All right.
Yeah, it won't let me copy it.
Here, I'll write it down, and then I'll
I'm trying to make sure I have it right, because once we close this out, that is gone for forever.
All right. So my Telegram, I don't like reaching out to people, so
I'll take care of it.
I'll do it right now, so it's not
okay.
Suspicious. So here, let's see.
Fidimon, thank you for that. Yeah, I just sent a message. I think I put it in there right, Felix. So if you got a Telegram for me, great. That means I typed it in right. If not, yeah, Felix says I'll add it to my collection. Perfect.
So I just telegrammed at Minalaguar. So respond to that, and I'll get you details. So I'll write that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tom. We appreciate you taking some time to join us and giving some updates. I learned a bunch of things, and I'm way more excited even than I already was about where this is going, because I think I'm starting to capture the full vision of probably what you've been thinking about for months and maybe even years.
Yeah. On our announcements channel, the Devio announcements channel, I did a full kind of hour presentation of our, well, I have a link to it in the Devio announcements channel. So I did a full hour presentation of the whole kind of ecosystem philosophy. And it's a great kind of, it's the foundation that we're growing from, from here on. So if you get a chance, look at the Devio announcements channel and scroll up a little bit, and you can see the YouTube video I did.
Totally watch that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Tom.
Great.
Appreciate you for joining us.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jared. And nice seeing all of the Crypto Rain community again. So thanks, everyone.
That was awesome. So do you see why I'm so excited about Devio? Yes, I'm an investor in it. Maybe I'm biased, but there's a reason I invested into it, because I see where it's going. And it was, I know it's frustrating that there isn't an avenue that you can invest in it right now. Some of this is awareness for what's coming. You can play the game and earn some things in the game. There are some things that you can buy in the game. There are some Genesis lit pets and other things. At some point, a token will launch. There's a chance that U.S. investors won't be able to buy it because they just have to be cautious with the SEC and other things. They want to make sure that they're abiding by all the laws and doing things right. And so they're just playing by the rules as they understand them. There probably will be a point that you can do something, though. I hope this gives you a glimpse into where things can go and where blockchain gaming and play-to-earn gaming is going, and maybe even metaverses. I hope you picked up a few new things about it too, if you're already familiar with them, because I know I did. And if this is your first time hearing about them, yes, they can do millions of transactions per second. A company called Accenture, I actually years ago used to work for Accenture. They have a blockchain group that's one of the best in the world. They are a consulting firm, and they came in when they were doing a deal with a Fortune 100 company, and the Fortune 100 company couldn't believe it either. So they sent some people down to audit it and make sure it really could do that. And yes, it could. Game Trove says, waiting for the rains. We are excited. We've had a little bit of excitement in the crypto space. Some blockchain gaming has picked up. Some other things have picked up. Bitcoin's been going on a tear, which is exciting. Will it continue? I wish I could say. I don't know for sure. What I know is I like to buy when it's cheap, and everything's been really cheap. And even after this run, things are still cheap. And then wait till the rains come in, kind of like farmers planting their seeds. And you want to plant them before the harvest, not during the harvest. You want to plant them when everybody else isn't thinking about these things. And then harvest when everyone else is running in and like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in the world. And oh my gosh, I'm going to sell my 2 homes and throw it all into crypto. They're probably doing that late. The time to be investing in crypto was when everything is slow, when most people aren't watching or paying attention, and then harvest when everybody comes in. I know it's been slow. That's part of it. But know that the good decisions that you make right now and the good investments that you make during these slow times, they turn into life-changing ones when the market turns around, because the rains will come again, and the projects that planted their seeds well and nurtured them will flourish. And those of you who have found them, invested in them, and been patient with those projects, your portfolios will flourish. This wrap is for all of you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see y'all soon.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I sit the one out, cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich. rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong can soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be cracking. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.